Well, hi. On today's show, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the polio situation around the world, really targeting three main areas. I want to look at Pakistan, I want to look at Angola, and I want to look at the Philippines. And this is just a follow-up video to one I did on October 6th. And the numbers keep on mounting. And what do we see from the Global Polio Eradication Initiative? This week, the numbers of cases of wild polio virus, which is all wild polio virus 1, is up to 112 globally. And the circulating vaccine-derived polio virus is up to 176. To put it in perspective, this time in 2018, there was only 29 wild polio virus 1 cases and just over 100 circulating vaccine-derived polio virus cases. So it's up. It's up significantly this year. And if we look at the countries, right now, I mean, the list is quite long. There's 17 countries that have reported circulating vaccine-derived polio virus or wild polio virus, or in the case of Pakistan, both. So, yeah, and the numbers are pretty astounding. And I'd like to just point out what we see in Pakistan so far. Pakistan has seen 91 wild polio virus cases this year. At the same time in 2018, there was 8 cases. So dramatic difference concerning wild polio virus. And in all of 2018, there was 12. So we do see a big problem in Pakistan. Other countries I want to take a look at is Angola, and we'll talk in a little bit more detail about Angola in a few minutes, but Angola has seen 42, according to the GPEI, 42 circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus cases this year. And of course, there was none last year. And the Philippines is the other country I'm going to talk about. And the official numbers with the GPEI are at 5, but as you'll see from Philippine health authorities, that number is higher than that. Okay, so let's move on. And this came out from the World Health Organization this week. And the World Health Organization and UNICEF are kicked off a 4-day regional emergency preparedness workshop in Togo, the country of Togo, for senior public health officials to strengthen the capabilities within West African countries to respond to polio outbreaks. And when I showed you the listing of all the countries that have reported vaccine-derived polio viruses, the bulk of them are in Africa. Now, Africa hasn't seen any wild polio virus since it was last one was reported in Borno State, Nigeria in 2016. So the continent, Nigeria, the country, and the continent of Africa are right on the edge of being certified free of wild polio virus sometime in next year, if all goes well. But there's a lot of countries, 13 of them, that are experiencing outbreaks of circulating vaccine-derived polio viruses. And most of those are in West Africa. It says, although vaccine-derived polio viruses are rare, they are sometimes found in severely under-immunized populations living in areas with inadequate sanitation. When children are immunized with the oral polio virus, this is very important because I get some interesting comments on the Infectious Disease News Facebook page about, oh, so the vaccine is causing polio. Well, this is how it works. When children are immunized with the oral polio vaccine, the live virus replicates in the intestines for a short time, which allows them to build up the needed antibodies before being excreted. If immunization coverage remains low in the community and sanitation remains inadequate, the excreted virus can be transmitted to susceptible populations, leading to genetic changes and emergence of vaccine-derived polioviruses. So very important. So it's because these populations aren't well immunized that we are seeing these vaccine-derived polio virus cases. So 13 different countries are partnering up on this, and it says, quote, the workshop aims to create a pool of senior public health officials who set up and lead national rapid response teams that target combating a circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus outbreak. The workshop will train the participants on standard operating procedures for polio outbreak response, including strategies that can strengthen a country's disease surveillance system. Outbreaks of circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus are a challenge for the region, but we are capable of overcoming it through outbreak response preparedness and vigilant surveillance. So vaccine-derived poliovirus is a big problem, and there's been a large number of cases, much more than we saw last year, in more countries. And there's some Asian countries that are involved too. Obviously, the Philippines, something we're going to talk about soon, but China's seen a case this year, and I think last year Indonesia saw some cases, Myanmar. So this is a very, very important, critical thing, because these vaccine-derived polioviruses can be just as pathogenic as a wild poliovirus. So, okay, now I found this interesting report in the BMJ, and it's a response to an article they had concerning polio eradication. And somebody wrote to the editor and had the following to say. After thanking the efforts of the government of Pakistan, the World Health Organization, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they write, a few months ago, Bill Gates wrote a letter to Prime Minister Imran Khan to affirm his support of the anti-polio drive in Pakistan and appreciating the government of Pakistan's transformative efforts in the administration and operational aspects of polio eradication. And the Gates Foundation provided over $1 billion, and some other international donors will provide over $2 billion to vaccinate 450 million children against polio each year. So some big stuff going on there, but it needs to get going, because you can see what's going on in Pakistan. The numbers are just skyrocketing, considering how well the country has done in previous years. Concern is mounting that the global drive to eradicate polio in Pakistan is being undermined by an outbreak of wild poliovirus type 1 and the resurgence of dangerous, eradicated vaccine-derived poliovirus type 2 strains. And as I said, the numbers are up to 91 wild poliovirus cases, and I believe there's a handful, at least maybe 8 circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus cases so far in polio. Polio challenges remain. Polio outbreaks in Pakistan, particularly in the northern tribal areas, are linked to a large number of unvaccinated children, low vaccination coverage, killing of polio workers, poor sanitation, public attitudes and misconceptions like it is not Islamic, it is substandard, it produces impotency, or more doses are administered rather than the recommended by the World Health Organization. Conspiracy rumors exist about the mishandling of the vaccines during storage and transportation, and about its side effects, because recently hundreds of children were rushed to a hospital with complaints of abdominal pain, vomiting, and fainting after polio vaccination. Vaccine refusal by the public because of a lack of awareness is far more dangerous in the eradication of polio than dealing with the smaller fractions involved in anti-polio vaccination propaganda. And of course, money. Money is always an issue. So this individual writes, the only way to reduce the risk of further transmission is to strengthen surveillance, to address the gap in immunization coverage, to minimize the vaccine refusal via adapting evidence-based approaches to change misconceptions, to raise awareness about polio vaccination and its safety, and to ensure that quality vaccination campaigns are done. So I thought that was kind of an enlightening letter in response to an article in the BMJ. Now, this individual did write about the killing of polio workers. They did write about how people are being told for different reasons that the vaccines are no good or anti-Islam. Well, that kind of brings me to this article that I saw in the MENA FM. And it says, Afghanistan, Taliban ban polio vaccination in Uruzgan. Hopefully I said that correctly. Health officials in central Uruzgan province said that over 70% of children who need to receive anti-polio vaccination were disappeared during vaccination campaign due to the Taliban's threats to the organization in the province. Now, the campaign was launched for 3 days, aiming for 50,000 children to be vaccinated by a provincial public hospital. One physician told a news source that despite recording of 8 positive polio cases, the Taliban militants have banned anti-polio vaccination in the areas under their control. Over 140,000 children have not received their vaccinations. If the Taliban held on ban against vaccinations, he said, that dangerous and harmful consequences would be created in the future. Well, yeah, that kind of goes without saying. But again, that's just another part of the problem in that part of the world concerning eradicating polio, right? There's 3 endemic countries left. Like I said, though, Nigeria hasn't reported a wild polio virus case since the summer of 2016. So if all goes well, they're going to be declared eradicated. However, Afghanistan and Pakistan are really battling a whole number of different obstacles in achieving the same thing that all these other countries have achieved. Now, another country I really want to touch on is Angola. Now, Angola hasn't seen polio in several years. And this is a report from UNICEF from 2012. And it says, today, Angola marks a year without a new wild poliovirus case, moving the world a step closer to the final global goal of eradicating this contagious, crippling disease forever. After a concerted effort to stop polio transmission, the number of polio cases dropped from 33 in 2010 to 5 in 2011, and in 2012 there were no registered wild poliovirus cases. And the last confirmed case was a 14-month-old child in the country's northwest in July 2011. So the years went by. So probably sometime around 2015 to 2016, Angola was considered eradicated for wild poliovirus. That brings us to 2019. And this is from official Angola press. This is from the middle of the month. Remember, the Global Polio Eradication Initiative was reporting 42 cases of circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus in Angola. This is 2 weeks old, and they were saying at least 44 cases of polio were reported in this year in Angola, according to the health minister. And that prompted, of course, several vaccination campaigns. But very, very important, because remember, this country saw 0 vaccine-derived polio cases just last year. So according to Angolan officials, 44 cases this year. Big problem in Angola. So we'll be keeping a close eye on Angola, as we'll be keeping a close eye on the next country, and that's the Philippines. The Philippines hasn't seen a polio case since 2000. I think that was the last wild polio virus case, maybe, or the last circulating case. I don't recall. But it's been like 20 years. And then in September, the first case of vaccine-derived poliovirus was reported. Well, this came out earlier this week that the Department of Health reported the 8th polio case in the country after samples were sent to the Research Institute for Tropical Medicine, that's in one of the suburbs of Manila, and the National Institutes of Infectious Diseases in Tokyo, Japan. And of course, this came out positive. So that's a total of 8 cases. The latest confirmed polio case is a 9-year-old female from Basilan who was unvaccinated for polio. Very important. So the vast majority of these polio cases in the Philippines have been reported in this southern island at the bottom called Mindanao. And I think there's at least 1, maybe 2 cases reported on different islands, but Mindanao has been the kind of the focal point for the human polio cases that we've seen so far. And then this very troubling story came out of the Department of Health 2 days ago. And they say that, again, the RITM and the Japanese National Institute of Infectious Diseases confirmed 26 out of 142 environmental samples tested positive for either poliovirus type 1 or 2. Very, very troubling. Very, very troubling. And out of the 26 positive samples, 25 were collected from the National Capital Region. This is the area, the most populated area of the country. This is where Manila is. We're talking millions and millions of people. And there was one case from Davao City, which is down in Mindanao, but it is one of the largest cities in Mindanao also. So 26 positive samples, environmental samples, positive for either poliovirus type 1 or 2. So that's very, very concerning. The health secretary, his name is Francisco Duque, said the following: the presence of the poliovirus in environmental samples implies that carriers of the virus are continuously shedding in the communities. If viruses continue to spread from person to person in areas with low immunization coverage, the poliovirus evolves and regains the ability to cause paralysis. So again, wisely, he's saying this is why it is of utmost importance that we vaccinate all children below 5 years old, regardless of their vaccination status. So, yeah, and the vaccination campaigns are on full force in the Philippines now, as you're going to see in this last slide. The Philippine Red Cross say they vaccinated almost 80,000 children against polio in the past 3 days. It says the Philippine Red Cross polio vaccination program, in line with Sabayang Patak Contra Polio, has vaccinated 78,479 children on the third day of the campaign. Almost an even split between the Metro Manila area and Mindanao. And the program is scheduled to be run from November 25th through December 7th and aims to reach 100,000 children in the National Capital Region and in Mindanao. Okay. It says the Philippines was declared polio-free in 2000 after almost a decade. The virus resurfaced, causing an alarm to the public. So there's a lot of volunteers and staff working on this, going house to house, giving the oral polio vaccine to children under the age of 5. So anyway, and like I said in the last video from October 6th, and I'll put the link down below if you want to take a look at it, because the numbers have changed in that short period of time, that we've taken a step backwards concerning polio eradication. We're seeing Pakistan with numbers going quite high. You know, it's likely going to go over 100 this year in Pakistan of the wild polio virus. We're seeing countries like Angola and the Democratic Republic of the Congo reporting dozens of vaccine-derived polio virus cases, and a number of other African countries, and the Philippines is having their own issues with polio virus. So something we got to keep an eye on. These children have to get vaccinated. It's the only way to slow this thing down. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share it with your friends, people that care about polio. Let them know. People in the Philippines, people in Pakistan, share it with your friends. This is very important stuff. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment below, and I'll see you next time.